everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do some basic coverage of horoscopes, actually natal charts and transits, so that you know you're reading the correct horoscope for you when you read a horoscope, because a lot of people read their sun sign horoscope and that's not always going to be most accurate for you. But first, before we do that, I wanted to discuss what a natal chart is. A natal chart is a snapshot of where the planets were the moment you were born. Now, a chart, let me show you an example of one. It looks complicated, but once you learn to read it, it's not that bad. You'll see it's a circle divided into 12 slices. Those are the 12 houses of the zodiac. Each house has different attributes. House 1 here is yourself, your appearance, the first impressions you make on others. House 2 is money and material goods. House 3 is communication, friends, neighbors, your community. House 4 is home and family, and so forth. So what you're looking at when you look at your natal chart is where the planets were in which houses, because that's an overall influence in your life if you believe in astrology. This is a chart for Julian Pindell, born on the 2nd of July in 1843. He's long dead, so that's why I don't mind sharing his chart. It's not, private information that's gonna hurt him at this point. So, this is where the planets were when he was born. He was born in Elmswell, England at what time? 11:40 a.m. All right. So in order to get an accurate snapshot of your chart, you absolutely need to know where you were born and what time you were born. A lot of people will say, well, you can cast a chart without knowing the time of birth. And you can, but it won't be as accurate. And you really kind of want it to be as accurate as possible, because what you need to know when reading a horoscope is not where your sun was. Most people know where their sun was because the sun's roughly in the same place at the same time every year. And, from December 21st to January 21st-ish, it's in Capricorn. From, January 22nd through February 19th, 22nd, something like that, it's in Aquarius, and so forth. So when you look at a horoscope, it'll say, oh, these birth dates. And it's a horoscope for your sun sign. The thing is, horoscopes assume that your sun, the sign that you were born under, is also your first house. And as you can see here, Julian's sun is in his 10th house. There's a 10 here. If he wanted to read a horoscope that were accurate for him, he'd want to read Libra, because that's the sign that's in his first house. And I'll show you why. This is Julian's chart again, but now it includes the transits. Now, transits, it's the same planets as inside, but it shows where they are now, today, at this moment. And when a horoscope is written for each sign, it takes that first house and places the planets according to that first house. So Julian is a Cancer. See, his sun's in Cancer here. A horoscope for Cancer is going to assume Cancer is here, which would mean the moon would be in his 12th house, and it's actually in his 9th. And that's a pretty big difference. You know, Uranus over here is in his 8th house, death and taxes, which means a sudden and unexpected death, or maybe he gets a windfall of money, or maybe he suddenly owes some money, because Uranus is, you know, unexpected surprises, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but, and it's just entering his 8th house here. But if he were to read the Cancer horoscope, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, they'd have Uranus in his 11th house, so something unexpected with his friends or any organizations he's a part of, and that's a pretty different thing, right? So the reason I say to have an accurate chart, know what time you were born. It'll be on your birth certificate. Maybe your mother remembers if you are still in touch with her. My mother calls me every year on my birthday at the time I was born to tell me how terrible giving birth to me was. It's quite delightful. But she's kidding. She's kidding. She actually had a very easy labor. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Yes, so if he reads Libra, which is his entire first house is Libra, then he will get a more accurate report, because that horoscope will assume the correct placement of the planets in his chart transiting. I have a divided first house. My first house is half Aquarius, half Pisces. That means that I sometimes need to read Aquarius and I sometimes need to read Pisces. And this is why it's really important to be familiar with your chart and to know where planets are falling in your chart. Because sometimes the Aquarius horoscope is more accurate because it's assuming, you know, the correct placement, transits. And sometimes Pisces is more accurate because it's assuming more, you know, correct placement and transits. So right now, your Saturn and Pluto are about to conjoin in Capricorn, which is my 12th house. So right now, the Aquarius horoscope, at least for that particular aspect, is the correct one for me to read. That's not always true. Sometimes parts of the Aquarius horoscope are correct for me and parts of the Pisces horoscope are correct for me. It can get pretty complicated. But what I'll tell you is my sun sign is never correct for me because my sun is not near my rising sign. And so it's never going to have the right placements for me in the horoscope. Those transiting planets are not where that sun sign horoscope thinks they are. And that's why I recommend to people to always get their chart, get an accurate chart, know your transits, but also then you can choose the horoscope that actually applies to you. Now, a good place to get a free birth chart is astro.com. That's where I printed these from. Let's see here. There are many other sites where you can get a free chart as long as you can input the information of where and when you were born. But I just find this easy to read for me. And once you are familiar with your chart and you can read accurately for yourself, and when you start comparing horoscopes with other people or trying to see where things fit in, you will get, again, more accurate information. So, people were like, oh, well, a horoscope is never accurate. A horoscope is general. It has to be. Because just like when I do a general reading on this channel, I can't read specifically for, hundreds or thousands of people. And a horoscope is the same way. It's like, well, I can tell you where the planets are in comparison to your chart, and I can tell you what kind of influences they might be having, but you have to also remember that everybody's chart is individual. You may have the same house placement as millions of people, but your natal planets are gonna be unique to you based on where and when you were born. So even if somebody else was reading Libra and Julian was having a thing and this person, but his Uranus here is not aspecting anything right now. It's not forming any kind of combo or anything. Whereas somebody else who might have Uranus in the exact same place, but their personal planet, they might have like a, Venus over here, opposing Uranus, and that's going to affect them differently. So again, horoscopes are general. They have to be. They don't, allow for all the minute individual planet aspects and placements because they can't. If you wanted to get like a personal horoscope, I don't know if anybody does that, but once you learn to read your chart, you can do it yourself. You can look at your natal charts and your transits and say, oh, I see this is happening. I understand now why this is happening. It gives you just much greater insight, and then things will make more sense sometimes, and you can see things coming sometimes. You can be like, oh, okay, I get it, because a horoscope's only going to talk about the big stuff that's going to be roughly true for everyone. But when you can read your own chart, you can see the big stuff, but also the little things that are just you. So, feel free to ask me any questions if you have them. I don't know how clear this was. I'm trying to make it easy, but it's kind of complex. So, I hope this helps though, and I hope you're able to get an accurate chart for yourself and begin reading your horoscope and reading the correct horoscope and getting a more accurate picture of things that are going on for you. Thanks.